This is Geek Gab with your hosts, John and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Saturday, March 17th, 2018. This is episode 135, and today we are going to be discussing Tomb Raider, not the video game, although a teaser trailer for Tomb Raider, the next video game, dropped just this week. We might mention that. We're going to be talking about the new Tomb Raider movie starring Alicia Vikander, whose name I'm probably butchering because it's some Swedish, Norse, something like that. And frankly, that's not where my ancestors came from, so I don't bother learning how to pronounce the names correctly. You'll just have to live with it. And then, once we're done with covering this topic in our usual and inimitable rambling style, we are going to be discussing having a sit-down with the great, the notorious Space Commander John De La Rose. And I'm sure he has won some awards, but I can't remember what they are. He also held the Happy Frog Awards just a few weeks ago. And despite the fact that we at Geek Gab did not even get nominated for any of those awards, we have graciously deigned to allow Mr. De La Rose to come back on the show this week to talk about his brand new book that is coming in a few days, The Stars Entwined. But before we get to all of that, John, how was your week?
It's been a good week, busy week. Work's been hell, so I'm glad to get out and do some geeking. It was D&D week, and I caught some Tomb Raider.
Did they have a celebration over the Knoll?
They had my players had quite a celebration. They celebrated by digging deeper into the dungeon, the significantly less protected by roaming bands of rogues dungeon, and slaughtered a bunch more monsters.
Well, there you go then. That's players for you.
It was a nice change of pace from the last few games where they mainly explored and stole treasure quietly. And this time they just went in guns blazing and slaughtered.
Because they figure, we don't want to leave any more survivors behind to become long-running campaign nemesis.
Yeah, because they know that any NPC that survives, I'm just going to tack rogue levels onto.
So, I went and saw Tomb Raider, which I wasn't planning on until late last night. I'm going to say this on the air because I think this is an interesting story. Never mind. We don't have enough time for all that. We got to get to John's stuff. I went and saw Tomb Raider last night. You went and saw Tomb Raider a couple of nights ago, and I've been looking to hear what you think about Tomb Raider because it has not just one, but two of your favorite actors in the movie, in the cast.
I was really happy. I wasn't sure if I was going to see it because we weren't necessarily going to talk about it on the show, but I saw that Dominic West and of The Wire and Walton Goggins were in it. And Walton Goggins plays the crazy villain on Justified, and he's pretty typecast at this point.
Oh yeah, his role in Justified was awesome, and he was also in The Shield, and he did a great job with that. And then all the little parts he's had since then have been just wonderful.
I regret to inform everybody that the typecast hasn't changed any. Guess who he gets to play in Tomb Raider? Yeah, he gets to play the crazy villain.
He was in The Hateful Eight. He played the racist sheriff who they meet at the very beginning of the movie. He was in Predators. He's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp coming up, so
It's his season.
He was in Maze Runner: The Death Cure.
He's just fun. He's just fun.
Yeah, he is. Very, very. Oh, and he played a crazy villain in American Ultra.
There you go.
Which I actually kind of enjoyed. So I don't know. All right. Now that we've gotten John's fan worship out of the way, what is it that you did you like the movie? Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend it to your friends?
Yeah, it's all right. It's what I thought about it when I left the theater is I thought that I had a lot of fun watching it, and it felt like I don't want to be too down on it, but it felt like, yeah, that was like a fun adventure movie without the character and charm of a Raiders of the Lost Ark. And for discerning cinephiles of our age, we always have to sort of we can't help but compare this type of adventure movie to Indiana Jones. And it doesn't reach those heights, but it's fun. And one of the reasons why it's sort of light on charm and character is that they waste no time. This movie is edited lean and mean. There's they don't waste time getting from plot point to plot point. When you think, well, that was kind of fast that they got to that, they don't care. Let's just move on to the violent stuff.
I apologize for the scatological nature of the following comment. I'd been drinking water heavily before I went into the theater and then was eating popcorn, so I drank water heavily while I was sitting in the theater. And when you drink a lot of water, there are certain biological processes that culminate in a strong urge to go and take care of them. And I just sat there in the movie, and every time I thought, oh, this looks like it'll be a slow spot, I just didn't get up to leave. And it turns out that like a minute later, something really important happened. So I could not have left to go to the restroom anytime during the movie without missing something pretty big. So yeah, I am agreeing with your previous observation. There is very little slow time after the initial couple of scenes. And even the initial couple of scenes where we're just learning about her and her background are, movie opens up. This is not a spoiler. It's not technically a spoiler if it happens in the opening scene of the movie. She's in an MMA fight. Opening scene, she's in an MMA fight. Then she goes back to her job as a bike courier. And the very next thing that happens, just a couple of minutes later, is she's in this massive chase, driving through the city on her bike with about 30 other bike messengers trying to catch her. I thought that scene was fun, but that is indicative of the pace of the entire rest of the film. MMA fight, 2 minutes of not doing something, bam, massive chase all across London.
Yeah, in fact, they probably could have cut that even shorter, all the time in between the chase scenes. Bar One Studios in the chat made a review of that and said that they wasted almost the first act. I tell you what, I found time to get up and leave sometime early in the movie. It was after those fun chase scenes, but it spends the beginning of the movie just establishing, for anybody who knows nothing about Lara Croft or Tomb Raider, hey, this is a girl who is all about action. She challenges herself physically all the time, so that they can establish that she may be capable of the completely unbelievable feats you're about to see later in the film.
By the way, folks, because coming to this show is educational as well as entertaining, I'm going to introduce you to a technical term in radio. It's called nat sound. And I am going to have some nat sound for you right now. That nat sound was the sound of me ripping the pages with my notes on it out of my notebook so I can go over it. Nat sound is short for natural sound. Whenever you hear somebody on the radio who's standing in front of a highway and you can hear cars passing in the background and people honking their horns, that's called nat sound. And now you know a little bit more about the radio business that you didn't before. But I have right here notes that I took on the movie. And I want to just run through them real quickly. The ones we haven't already covered. The storm scene when they get to the island. There's an island, they get to it, bad things happen. The movie, and I'm going to say this up front, is mostly the first reboot Tomb Raider game. Mostly the first reboot Tomb Raider game, which came out in 2013 or 2011. Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember the year off the top of my head.
Okay,
it's a pretty good game.
The original Tomb Raider, by the way, came out in 1996, and I am correct. It is 2013 that the reboot came out. So the most of the core of the movie is based around the events and an interpretation, a reinterpretation, revamping of all the stuff, basically with. Oh, it's a big spoiler. I don't want to talk about that just yet. So if you've played the game, you know the basic setup. There's a mysterious island. She wants to go to the mysterious island. Their boat crashes and they're on the mysterious island. Okay, that's not a spoiler if you know that the game is based on the first Tomb Raider reboot game in 2013. So the problem I had was that entire crash scene where there's a big storm overhead and waters and waves rushing in. I couldn't see what the hell was going on. Nothing. I could not tell what was going wrong. And I was in the fourth row. I was almost directly under the screen, right? Almost close enough to reach out and poke at the screen, and I still couldn't see what was going on. There was just too stroboscopic for clear visions, be able to clearly see it. Skipping ahead, this is a Tomb Raider movie, which means there are lots of puzzles, because that's Tomb Raider. The big problem I had with the puzzles in the movie is they never showed details on any of the puzzles except one very, very late in the movie. They would show you the puzzle. They would that you think there needs to be a solution to it. So you're kind of listening, watching, waiting for the solution. Then they will show her having already solved it, and they never show the solution. They never show that she's being clever or that she's thinking through something really, really she's thinking through something really, really clever. She's intelligent. She's well-educated. Even if she didn't go to college, university, she's well-educated. They don't show you that. They just show her having solved the puzzle. Not even solving the puzzle, just having solved the puzzle. And I think I'm comparing it to National Treasure, which did it much, much better. Where you get to have Nick Cage's character explaining all the little clever things he's figured out. And I don't even want to vouch for the historical accuracy of anything in National Treasure 1 and 2, but it was a lot better because then you get the feeling that his character really is clever, really is highly intelligent and well-educated in these subjects that he is presented as being an expert in. They could have done it much, much better, but that would have taken more work, and I don't think Hollywood writers really like that. The movie is, in a lot of scenes with certain traps, kind of a Last Crusade ripoff.
A little bit.
Not huge, but enough to be noticeable. And especially in this day and age, it's like lightsabers, right? And this is how it's like lightsabers, folks. I'm about to...
This is going to be some impressive gymnastics. I'm ready for this.
Explain that. So, lightsabers were once ubiquitous in science fiction back during the pulp age. Everybody used them. Movies, serials, that is movie serials, not, Captain Crunch, movie serials, serialized movie shorts that used to play at theaters, and then you would go back and see the next chunk of story the next time. They always ended with a cliffhanger hook. Books, whatever, they all had laser swords, ubiquitous, everywhere. Then the boring assholes of science fiction came along, threw out everything fun into this giant trash heap, flushed it away, banished all the cool stuff and all the fun stuff. All the cool stuff and fun stuff went to comics and went to Japan and went to France. Not in America. Boring in America. Whatever reason. But they still have these movies. And so George Lucas and Steven Spielberg come along and they recreate these movies that they learned about in film school, like Flash Gordon. Because George Lucas originally wanted to make Flash Gordon, he couldn't get the rights, so he instead made Star Wars, and he brought back brought back laser swords to Star Wars. And now everyone thinks that Star Wars invented laser swords, and so no one can use laser swords since 1977. All right? 40 years ago. 40. No one has been able to use laser swords for 2 generations without people calling them ripoffs of Star Wars. Even though Star Wars was the ripoff from lots of other stuff. Star Wars now owns laser swords.
DW.
In a similar way.
Can I chime in here? Because I'm not supposed to come on yet because you guys are still kind of talking about other things. But I love laser swords. And there is a return of laser swords in independent science fiction. I don't know if you're about to get to that, but it's happening. I just finished Kursova magazine number 7, and what I love about Adrian Cole's serial in there, which is a classic serial style, like you're talking about, is that he had me once. He said we have a star lens. Fans want this.
So, in a similar manner, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas also resurrected a ubiquitous character type, picked it up out of the trash heap where it had been blithely abandoned by generations of writers, the archetype of the adventuring scholar. And this goes all the way back to the Alan Quatermain stories in the 1800s. The adventuring scholar or adventuring archaeologist, many of which were based off of a real man, including Indiana Jones. But everybody had gotten rid of all that stuff, so when Indiana Jones came along, and it must be said, the only reason they got such definitive control over these tropes is because the movies were so immensely awesome. Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars were both incredible blockbuster movies for good reason, and now Indiana Jones owns the adventuring archaeologist type. And so ever since Indiana Jones, his very first movie, came out, anyone who creates an adventuring scientist or an adventuring archaeologist, like Lara Croft Tomb Raider, like the gentleman from National Treasure, like Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series on the PlayStation, all of them are, whether they are or not, are titled Indiana Jones ripoffs, even if they're not. So, my last note on my paper is this. In this specific case, with this specific movie, it's not just that they've got what people call now an Indiana Jones character or an Indiana Jones-esque character, but they borrow specific stuff, weirdly specific stuff, from the Last Crusade, and it goes, anybody who uses an adventuring archaeologist type, I would enjoy seeing that archetype rescued from the clutches of Indiana Jones, especially as the movies have gotten to be so awful recently. But what I don't like is actually really stealing ideas and concepts from the Indiana Jones, one specific movie and specific plots, traps in that movie. So that was the one thing I did not like. Those are, in fact, 3 or 4 minor things. However, I thought the movie was fun. I really enjoyed it. It is not a movie I'd go buy or watch again, but it was enjoyable for the time I watched it. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to give a disclaimer. I did not feel like I wasted my money. Now, that's not a backhanded compliment because I only had to spend $1 to get into the movie. So seeing an entire movie for $1, it would be hard to feel like I had been cheated out of my $1. But even if I'd spent full price for this movie, even if I wasn't reviewing it for this show or watching it so I could review it on this show, I still would have felt like I got my money's worth. So, do you have anything else, Dorno?
Well, I feel largely the same way. I think for a younger generation, a new generation of moviegoers, you should show them Raiders of the Lost Ark instead. If you like going out and see new movies, seeing what's coming out of Hollywood or wherever, and you like adventure movies, you should see this movie. I wouldn't steer you wrong, but in the genre of adventure movies, you're just better off seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark.
All right. I don't have anything else to say about Raiders of the Lost Ark, other than they had a bunch of previews before it, and most of them look awful.
Yeah, it's very sad. There not enough melting face in Tomb Raider. It definitely could have used more melting Nazi face.
But there weren't any Nazis in Tomb Raider.
Oh, that must be the problem. They should have ripped that off.
So would you care to do an introduction on our guest? Oh, look at that. We are almost exactly on time. We were but 2 minutes late to get to when we were supposed to be introducing our guest. And I will point out on my behalf that 2-minute gap was caused by our guest. So we are actually exactly on time, to the minute. Is that impressive or what?
Hey, when you're good, you're good.
Introduce him, John Delarose, Space Commander. John Delarose is on the show. Take it away, Dornall.
You did it. That's his name, John Delarose. He's on the show. Thanks for coming on.
You don't want to say anything about his past?
His
murky and mysterious past, perhaps working as a slaver for Ruritanian pirates. I feel like that could be topical.
I was going to go with his public persona as the most electrifying Hispanic science fiction author in America.
The most electrifying. Wow. I like that. They use that.
Recently been accused of stealing plutonium from a national laboratory in Tennessee. Not going to mention that at all.
He wanted us to keep the supervillain identity secret, but since it's out of the bag now, what's the plan? Are we going to get Death Raid or Laser Sword?
No, guys. I'm working on a secret mission for Space Force Command. The plutonium is going to be used in our plutonium nuclear drives so that we can outrace Russia to Mars.
By the way, the National Laboratory in Tennessee, I believe, is Oak Ridge.
I'll actually be in Tennessee at the end of June.
So, John, not that this is the only thing we need to talk about, but you have a new book that you're just starting working on, and another new book that will be coming out.
I'm always working on a book, so that doesn't that's not news. But I guess coming out with books won't be news either. I'm not gonna be like that, like, George R.R. Martin fellow. I'm gonna be trying to come out with books every couple of months here. So it's a harsh mistress trying to accommodate that schedule, but you know what? It's better for everybody.
So your new book that's coming out is called The Stars Entwined, right?
Yeah. So this is actually the first one I wrote ever. And I started writing this. I was just screwing around in high school English class. And she my teacher, gave an assignment where she was like, do a creative writing thing. And this was, I haven't done much creative writing at that point. I did a little role playing online on IRC chats. If you guys are you guys as old as me on that front?
Oh, yeah. IRC,
okay.
Old school.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So if you recall, there used to be like a role-playing community on IRC, and it was awesome. And I don't know if it was actually awesome or if I was 15 and I didn't know any better, but in my nostalgia, it's awesome. So I'd done that, and I kind of started translating that a little bit into this creative writing project, which I haven't talked about this yet on this front, but I basically was a big Star Trek Deep Space Nine dweeb at the time, and I just wanted to like make a better Deep Space Nine as it was kind of going off the air, and I made like this like spy tale. I didn't do Section 31, but I started doing that with this, and eventually, like, within a couple of weeks, I realized, well, I can't sell this or anything if I finish it. And I would like to sell it at some point, probably. So I'm just going to take the Star Trek out, and I kind of redid it. And then I restarted it from there. And over like 10 years, I restarted it a zillion times and then finally finished the book for the first time in 2012. It was complete garbage. And I might put portions of that up, but you can see how bad of a writer I used to be. And I rewrote it from scratch in 2014, and I still wasn't satisfied with it. So I rewrote it from scratch last year also. And now I have a beautiful novel that is like, I mean, it's so polished because of how many times I've rewritten this that it's just, I'm loving it. So I basically came up with my whole space opera universe over the time. A lot of the rewrites in there was actually redeveloping a universe, making rules, making aliens, figuring out sort of the geopolitical past and future. I wrote out a big timeline. I didn't do it like J. Michael Straczynski did for Babylon 5, where he did 1,000,000 years into the past and 1,000,000 years into the future. But I did, 500 years into the past and 500 years into the future. So I've got this, like, I've got it dialed in, and I'm super excited about it. And I'm going to be hopefully writing a lot of books in this universe in the future also.
I'm stunned. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, put a lot of work into it. So
I'm not stunned. I am replying to people in the chat. So. Oh,
nice. Yeah. So that's it's going to be straight up space opera. This is a spy tale. I didn't want to copy a James Bond sort of thing, so it's going to be a little different than you're expecting. And it's got a lot of intrigue, got a lot of hiding within an alien culture sort of thing, and a lot of loyalties being tested, and that's kind of the theme I wanted to explore there.
So what's the scope? Is it Babylon 5, Deep Space Nine, all the actions contained to a claustrophobic space station where you can't get away from your enemies, or is it going to be a spacefaring, globe-trotting sort of experience?
This book, I would say about halfway in between, kind of those extremes there. So I started it out, like I said, you'll notice it because I start out and I have this like station I set up, and then like the first third of the book is all on a station, and that is what I was setting up originally, and then I kind of wanted to expand it from there, and since I don't have budget constrictions in words, I can kind of do what I want. So you visit a couple planets. It's in this book, at least. And I think most of the time is spent on an alien starship. But, that's a traveling starship, so it's not exactly confined. I tried to take whereas Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine kind of presented this like epic war that's developing. This is definitely like the season 1 where like the rumors of war are starting, and it's just starting to pick up. And I did it from like a very, the way I write, it's a very tight perspective. So you're getting the events from two people's perspectives in their geographic locations as they move about. But definitely it's meant to portray a backdrop of a war that's going to escalate to crazy epic proportions. So I don't know. I'm rambling a little too much, but it's all right.
I think the question that's on everybody's mind in the chat is, how much are you looking forward to the Solo movie?
Oh boy, am I looking forward to it?
No, how much are you looking forward?
No, that was my answer. In that flat of a tone.
You answered with a question?
Yeah.
What do you think this is, Jeopardy?
I don't think anybody's looking forward to the Solo movie. I mean, it looks, one, prequels suck. I've rarely. Has there ever been a prequel that's been pulled off well? Yes, Babylon 5 did it, but that doesn't count because it's Babylon 5. The Babylon 5 in the beginning movie was excellent, but I've never seen a good prequel outside of that. I don't think.
Well, the problem with prequels is that they go back and they're trying to. It does one of two things: either it makes the events that seemed weighty and thrilling and evocative, imaginatively evocative in the later work, or the earlier work, technically, that was published earlier. It either makes those events seem trite and a lot stupider than you thought they were, or it
just has no tension.
It feels mechanical.
Yeah.
Like there's a checklist of stuff that they have to hit to get you back to get everything set up for the actual story you saw, and there's just no surprises.
Yeah,
in the
and I think we had the latter with Rogue One. I mean, while it was all technically done right, and they technically hit all the little nostalgia points, like you knew exactly where it was going. So you couldn't care about the characters because from minute one, you kind of knew those characters weren't going to be around anymore.
Which I thought was a mistake, because people seem to like those characters much more than anybody in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, for sure.
And how much are you looking forward to Ready Player One?
I never read the book. People kind of warned me off of it. They said it would just make me mad. So I have no horse in the race for real.
I read Ready Player One, and I have a write-up of it on the Castalia House blog where I post. So if anybody is interested in hearing what I think about Ready Player One, it is and will be there.
All I know is that we've been dealing with Hollywood selling us nostalgia for years now. What are we gonna watch the ultimate nostalgia story that's written just for that?
So it's like a nostalgia. It's a nostalgia times nostalgia.
Yeah, it's nostalgia. Yeah,
Here's
it's
the thing.
Squared.
I can't think of a good way to say this, because the actual phrase I'm going to have to use, because we're PG rated here, does not clearly communicate the sting of feeling that I should be communicating. But a lot of this movie is Steven Spielberg, because he directed it, patting his own back. Where it's nostalgia for movies that Stephen King made. At one point in this movie, there's a T-Rex running along a road.
Oh, no.
I'm not making this up. I just saw it in the trailer last night, folks. A T-Rex running along the road who grabs a car and starts eating it.
Yeah.
The only phrase I can think to describe that is so, rude that I can't say it. I'm not going to say it, but still, it's like Stephen King is just patting his own back, saying, and he knows that was a popular movie. Obviously, everybody knows it was a popular movie, and there may be a way to do that where it doesn't seem like kind of this smug, aren't I so awesome? But I can't think of it.
On the other hand, if you can't reference yourself, who can you reference?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just hoping it doesn't indicate that Steven Spielberg is dropping down the deep hole of narcissistic, self-referential crap that has blighted the latter years of Stephen King's career. So
we shall see. Because I know you guys are going to watch it and then roast it. So.
Oh man. I shouldn't do this either.
Do it.
Do it.
No.
Do it.
No, I'm not going to. It's okay. I'm good. I will tell people, though, if you're interested in the Stars Entwined, I've added a link to that specific book in the description below the chat. And if you are also interested in his other books, when you link to that, there's a there is a you can click on an author name to get to all of the rest of his other books.
Not all of them, because my original one from when we came on the show. So for those who don't know, I started in military science fiction before my steampunk novel, and my original one's gone now. It is out of print, and the company that published it is gone, and it's probably not going to come back into print in the near future. So I'm seeing it. My Amazon prices are like $80 for my book.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad I bought an ebook of that when I had the chance.
I don't think there's a danger of that for my new books, but that's kind of why I'm excited to launch a military science fiction that I own. That's my universe, so I can play in it kind of when I want, rather than kind of be at the whim of other publishers and the like.
So who owns the rights to that world?
It's a company called White Wizard Games. They own Star Realms, and I have a cordial relationship with them. But I'm not aware, that right now they're not plan. They've got maybe other plans or something like that, and they are not looking to bring it back into print anytime soon. And they declined a sequel. I never really got a reason why, but yeah, I've got a cordial relationship with them, but they are the rights owners, so I'm a little stuck with that.
But with the Stars Entwined, you have all the rights. So when is the movie coming out?
When's the movie coming out? As soon as somebody gives me a check to make a movie. So I'd be down, or ask me to option it and gives me a check so they can make a movie. Either way, I'm happy to have a movie as soon as there's a check.
That reminds me. That reminds me. Seriously, another friend of the show is a Mill SF author and an actor, so you can probably get Nick Cole to help you with that.
Nick Cole. Would Nick Cole play my guy? My guy's a little younger than Nick Cole. I've met Nick Cole in person. Nick's a pretty charming guy in person, though. So there is that, like, as a benefit. I'd cast him as the villain.
Oh,
so I'd make Nick do the kind of like so the villain is an alien leader who's kind of ramping the aliens up for war, and I think that's where I'd want Nick to be.
Coincidentally, speaking of breaking into the conversation and changing the subject, for those of you who have not read Ready Player One, I have included a link to my review of it, my scathing review, widely popular, widely infamous among Ready Player One fans, in the description underneath the video, so you can check that out.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this year for me is going to be, unfortunately, I have a bunch of book ones still in my back catalog. So bear with me for people who are waiting for sequels to different things. Obviously Star Realms, like I said, isn't going to happen. That was good. I was banking on that. I was planning on that kind of being my series. And then I had a couple other books kind of in the wings. I wanted those ready for publishers in case they had interest after I kind of got a little popular. I got a little popular, and obviously, publishers are don't care about economics at this point. But so I'm releasing those because I've got them ready and they're good. But it'll be a sec before we get to sequels, unfortunately.
All right.
I was looking forward to steampunk sequels.
That's going to happen. So I've written book 2 of that. It's just waiting for a cover, waiting for proofreading. And I'm about 30% through book 3 right now, and I've got a novella that's also set in my universe that's done. So this summer, it's gonna be summertime, probably July, August. I think you're gonna get flooded with this stuff. It's gonna be good.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I don't know. My problem is I just have too many ideas too. It's hard. As far as sequels go, like I don't know. I don't know if other authors have this issue too, but while it's easier to write sequels because you've already done the world building, you've already done the character sort of concepts, and so you can just kind of crank it out a little easier. I have fun in exploring concepts personally. So it's like I'm sitting here and I'm in the middle of my third steampunk book, and I'm just sitting here, and as I was telling DW at the beginning of this, I've got a space force idea. And I want to make a Space Force book now, and that's just too exciting to not do. So it slows me down on my sequels.
Now, there was another project that you posted information on to the that you shared information on with me in a private chat. Can you talk about that yet?
Which one's this? You can name anything. I'm pretty open.
The one where you were having someone, you posted several examples of art mock-ups.
Oh, the comic. Yeah. So this is more military science fiction. So I'm gonna be focused there, other than my steampunk and alt hero. There's a lot of people waiting for alt hero too. So I'll just say right now, it's in Vox's court. He's a little behind on certain things because he's trying to get the comics really cranking first, which makes sense financially. So I'm kind of waiting for Vox Day to give some feedback on my last work there, which has been a while, but it'll be coming. This is another one that I'm going to be publishing through Arcaven Comics. It is the Ember War. I'm doing a comic book adaptation of Dragon Award winner Richard Fox's military science fiction novels. This is huge, and I can't overstate how huge this is, because Richard Fox has sold hundreds of thousands of books. He is such a bigger author than people realize, and this is kind of how indie is deceptive. Just from what people understand, you get a lot of publicity about these big name authors from Tor or Bane or whatnot because they've got publicity machines constantly, but there's indie authors who are outselling anybody from those companies. Richard Fox routinely outsells John Scalzi, for example, and the Ember War has a huge fan base. So I'm working on the comic adaptation of this. The first issue is drawn. I'm going to announce the artist here. The artist is this is never before announced. So Geek Gab exclusive. The artist is Jethro Morales. Jethro Morales actually has worked on The Green Hornet and has worked on Deja Thoris for is it Dynamite Comics, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, he's done both of those books, and so he's a veteran artist, kind of at that like B-level pulp character status, and that's why I wanted him for a military science fiction series like this.
So, what is your opinion of the recent? Okay, there've been a lot of drama in the comics community for the last year or so. One of the things that happened recently is IDW, who publishes all the Hasbro lines and a bunch of other stuff, who were at one point a great prestige company. They lost 91% of their profit last year. They have 91% drop in profit, millions of dollars that they no longer have. And the founder of the company has now been forced out because of that, the CEO. Get woke, go broke is the new phrase that started making the rounds, and I love it. I think it's perfect.
It's a great phrase.
Get woke, go broke. If you go you go social justice warrior in your comics or whatever, people start turning off because you're just making propaganda, and not particularly interesting propaganda at that. If you're going to crank out propaganda, it has to be interesting. It has to be good, or people are going to hate it. They used
At
to
least make V for Vendetta. If you're going to make propaganda, make V for Vendetta. Right?
But then he's been forced out now. And at the same time, this was leading up to him being forced out. DC, who has been kind of trying to prop up the comics industry, went really wacky SJW with their subsidiary or ancillary lines that they were just launching, like a new young adult line and a new young kids line, to try and bring in younger comic readers and make them lifelong customers. And instead of doing that, they decided to go nutso SJW. What's the deal?
I think when you've got a company, especially like Hasbro or like DC, you've got you have a brand there, and that brand is legacy characters that people care about. People care about G.I. Joe from their kid days because they had either the action figures or they watched the cartoon or they read the old comic book. So if you've got a built-in fan base of, say, call it 100,000 people. And if you consistently tell that fan base, here's books, you're just going to buy it anyway because it's got the brand name on it. Screw you. We don't care about making this book for you. This book's not for you. You're too entitled for thinking that this book is for you. We're making it for these people over here. This 100,000 people we hope are over here. We haven't actually done studies on that, but we hope they're over here. So they'll buy it, and you guys can go stuff it. When you tell your fan base that, obviously people will buy it over time. I mean, I talked to Douglas Ernst. He's a comic book reviewer on YouTube, and he kind of popular guy, and he still buys Amazing Spider-Man every month after month. And I talk to him every couple months, and I'm like, Douglas, why are you buying it still? Just stop. And he's like, I have to. And so they do a good job of getting that habit. But the thing is, that habit's only so strong in 10% of your customer base. So you then tell your 90,000 to go away, and they do go away. And, over time, if you start losing 9/10 of your customers over and over and over again, you got nothing left. And that's where you lose your money. So I think that's the thing with legacy brands, especially if you want to make propaganda. It's like you said, like V for Vendetta is just Alan Moore's own creation. It's just his own thing. And he can do that there. And the people who are interested in checking that out might check that out because they don't already have an established Superman audience who's, Superman is suddenly an Antifa fighter or something like that. That nobody's buying Superman for that. And you have an expectation of what you're coming in for your brand. So it's really about just don't lie to your readers about what they're expecting.
So DC Comics is going woke. Marvel is kind of staggering a little bit back from going woke, but it still has a bunch of really bad things in their lineup.
I don't think they're staggering back. Well, that's a great question. With the Captain America announcement of what's his name, like TC Coates or whatever his name is.
Tommy TC.
Yeah, however you pronounce that. It's that's frightening. But on the other hand, that move might have been made because of how far comics have lead time. It might have been made before this new editorial change. So I don't know. But for right now, they aren't really even walking it back that much.
And at the same time, they've still got a lot of SJWs making comics. They've just moved to new titles. And at the same time, Wizards of the Coast this week has, basically shot up a flare saying that they're woke as woke. Two flares actually saying they're woke as woke. The first one happened when I was at one of those rare intervals when I'm not on Twitter. And so I have no idea what exactly the story was. The first one that Wizards of the Coast shot up was changing all the texts on their cards to be gender neutral.
Oh, gosh.
Weird. And did you hear about this?
No.
Okay, neither.
Yeah, they're switching from Magic the Gathering cards that refer to he/she. They'll just switch to use they in card descriptions.
And
it doesn't even sound like it's going to save ink.
And someone also said that they were getting rid of a lot of artwork that was deemed to be, catering to the male gaze or something. Did you hear anything about that?
No, that's news to me.
Okay. I could see that happening for sure.
And
it's too bad.
Then they announced that elves, or some elves who have a particular blessing of Carillion in the Forgotten Realms setting, were going to be, every morning when they woke up, they can choose to change their gender to be male, female, or neither. And this is official, written into the rules, which, along with other stuff, makes it, with Pathfinder having gone full SJW, which it is, and Wizards of the Coast now going full SJW, because social justice is like being a little bit pregnant, okay? You're never not just a little bit pregnant. You're just pregnant, and it's how far along are you? Are you a week pregnant or a month pregnant, first trimester, second trimester, about to pop, whatever it is, you're never just a little bit pregnant, right? Well, it seems to be the case in the vast majority of instances that you're never just a little bit social justice either. That when it starts small, doing otherwise defendable actions that indicate that they're falling prey to social justice, either because they've hired people who are social justice, or they've been badgered into it, or they're afraid that they'll lose business if they don't go social justice, or whatever, or them becoming a brand new convert to social justice. Whatever the reason is, Wizards of the Coast is going social justice, and I predict it's going to get worse and worse and worse. That's just my prediction, but it is true. It is going to happen because you're never just a little bit social justice. And with Pathfinder having gone, that's like 90 to 95% of the role-playing industry, of the sales and role-playing that are going to drop off. And you're going to see happening in role-playing what's happening now in comics, which is 50 comic shops across the country shut down last year, went out of business. Small, independently owned and operated shops. There was one person who set up this store. It's been his dream his entire life to have a comic shop. He developed it, developed the clientele, went into business for himself. His business has been collapsing and taken away because Marvel's sales are abysmal. They're ridiculously abysmal. They're disgusting. Diversity in Comics did a great show about this in the last few days, 2 or 3 days ago. So check it out if you can. He'll tell you exactly how awful the sales are. But what my point is that those same collapse in sales are going to hit the RPG market. And what's going to happen next, and it may take 2 or 3 years. It took 3 years with Marvel before before they could no longer lie about the sales collapsing and can no longer hide the fact that 50 stores shut down. You're going to see that gaming stores are vulnerable to the same sorts of problems that comic shops are, and you're going to see your friendly local gaming store, FLGS is the term. You're going to see a wave of failures hit that if Wizards of the Coast continues like this, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't in 2 to 3 years, I'm guessing. And that's going to be very, 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 very dispiriting.
And if you've never run a gaming store or talked to someone who's run a gaming store, you should know that it is already a really, really poor business model. They operate on almost no margins. A lot of them, especially around here in the social justice bubble of the Pacific Northwest, the successful ones are all making their money off of drinks. Most of them have a beer license. Some of them have a liquor license. It'll be a gaming cafe where you can order food and get a drink and hang out with your pals and play a few games. It's a lot of fun to go to, but they're operating on razor thin margins.
Oh, it's terrible.
And I'm not. Our RPGs have never been a huge source of income, but Magic is, and as soon as Magic stops being bringing in a bunch of money every week, a lot of these shops, the ones that aren't selling food, are pretty much guaranteed to go down.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I've already seen a couple game shops go out of business in my area, and Magic is it. Magic's like 50% of their income typically, and it's tightly controlled. You either the packs are what you can sell them for. And you've got board games in there too. And what happens invariably, I've watched people come into these stores and they go, well, I can get it 20% cheaper on Amazon. And they argue with the owner, and the owner's like, well, I got to sell it for what it is because I got to make a little bit of money. Yeah. But part of the problem also is as a game store, you can't just be a game store. You have to have space for people to play also and meet also. And that's how you develop your clientele. So your real estate prices are so high just because you have so much dead space where you can't sell product also.
Yeah, that reminds me of there's a great store that I went to in Salt Lake City that began as a sort of adult high I want to say upscale board game shop. They had a few tables to play out. It was very high quality, and they focused on Euro games, just regular board games. And they had only been in business for 2 or 3 years before they had to bend the knee and start selling Magic.
Yeah.
And because they did not want Magic Kids in there. I even spoke with the owner when I first came in. I was like, this is a wonderful, wonderful store. He says, yeah, because I don't want Magic Kids in here. and they had to start selling Magic. They could not make money any other way. And then eventually, like you were saying about space, they had to move to a bigger space just to offer more floor space.
Yeah, Magic's where it's at. So, but I think Magic has reached its peak. The thing is, the thing that confuses all this is where DW talks about how social justice kind of kills. It is like driving a rusty nail into a tree, right? You might not see it, right? You might think, well, maybe there's not enough sunlight, maybe there's not enough water, maybe it just died over time. Those things are happening too. That's the thing with all these products is all of them have invariably like created a collector's market. All of them have invariably flooded the market. All of them have invariably then offered sub-quality product to what they had flooded the market with prior, and they tax social justice on top of it. It's like, I don't know, maybe it is just the type of person that goes into the social justice element just doesn't know how to run a business, but I can predict this sort of thing, with dead on accuracy every single time.
So I've got a lot of thoughts here. Not one of them is predominant at this point, but the one thing that I am thinking is that for people who have the funding to put together a nice game, and I'm talking about a tabletop role-playing game, and who can deliver a great product, not just with nice art, but a great product, the next 2 or 3 years are going to be a prime time to try and start to steal customers from D&D or trying to provide. The thing is, too, it's going to be real easy to replace Dungeons and Dragons. Real easy. Because lots of people have already done it. They've already, there's first edition, second edition, 3.5. All those are still easily acquirable legitimately for people who don't like to, pirate stuff, don't like to bootleg. They're available legitimately. And then they're available for free through the system reference document. And the OSR movement has done clones of it. And so D&D is now its own worst competitor. If it starts going down, if 5th edition starts going down, if Wizards of the Coast starts going down because they killed Magic and D&D at the exact same time, they killed or are killing Magic and Dungeons and Dragons at the exact same time. They expect their company to survive this. Think about that for just a minute, folks. You're in an industry that's not actually an industry. It's a hobby industry, right? Very few people ever made their money full-time doing this compared to just about every other industry. And it is easily duplicated by an obsessive fan working in his house for decades to create exactly and precisely the game he wants to make. And because it's a hobby industry and because competition is so easy, there's basically zero bar to entry in this market. You can just buy a page layout program, type up your notes, drop it in the page layout program, and you can publish something on one bookshelf. And it'll look like crap unless you bother to do some basic graphic design and get some art or whatever. And the better you can do, as far as that goes, the better you'll sell. But the barrier to entry is very, very low at the low end. And we see there are tons of people selling in this marketplace. There are new games, new micro games with micro audiences every single week, multiple new games. And so there are lots of things for Dungeons and Dragons players who hate it to switch to, not the least of which is a clone of 5th edition. And so this is just, and so it's a good thing for the people who like non-social justice role-playing, is because It's much, much easier to replace Dungeons and Dragons than it is to replace Spider-Man.
Yeah, because it is, because Dungeons and Dragons at the end of the day is people getting around a table together and kind of making up their own thing, right?
Yep.
So you have a more collaborative, creative process where you're really as a product just trying to enable somebody else's creation versus here, read this. It's an active participation thing. I'm going to plug a micro game that I don't have anything to do with, but it's on right now. It's called Post World Games, and they're actually putting out an omnibus of their 19 different fantasy micro games that's on Kickstarter right now. My interest in this is that I've backed it, and it just looks really cool to me. So these things, there are opportunities out there to make a living doing this, I guess. These guys have a hard time, obviously, but I also like to support them because in these kind of environments, they're pushing the boundaries of creativity. And actually, if I'm looking for inspiration or looking to draw inspiration for something like this to try to twist things up or make it a little more fun, I feel like I'm going to get something more out of that than I'm going to get from like a corporate product that's trying to regurgitate 40 years of something, right?
And there were already competitors circling the water for Dungeons and Dragons. Mark Kern, the lead designer for World of Warcraft, is making his own video game and role-playing game. We had him on the show a few months ago to talk about it, and he showed me his mock-ups. And he has the money. He made World of Warcraft. He has the money he needs to put into making a role-playing game. And he's been designing one. And so there are people out there that are ready to eat Wizards of the Coast lunch and who can do it with a product that is essentially identical to D&D except for a few monsters. Because those are IP, right? Those are protected.
Yeah, I'll buy that. That sounds great.
So my comment on this is that the next 2 to 3 years are a perfect time. If you have the money and if you have the chutzpah and if you have a base to make competitor D&D, now's the time to do it because D&D, I predict, based on the following assumptions. One, nobody's just a little bit social justice. Okay, that's the major premise. The secondary premise or minor premise is get woke, go broke, you lose sales. So the conclusion from that, right? It's a simple syllogism. The conclusion from that is Wizards of the Coast is in a lot of trouble because they got woke with both Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, and they're going to only become more woke over their time. So that's it. Now is the time. If you want to be a competitor to Dungeons and Dragons, even if you're just a hobby publisher, even if you're just doing this because you're a lawyer during the day and you do this in your off time, now is a great time to step up. The only thing that makes me wary is the same thing that makes me wary in the indie publishing space. We don't have a lot of time to cover it, but we've mentioned it before. I am really, really worried that there is a monopoly on PDF distribution and print-on-demand distribution in the role-playing game sphere. That is one bookshelf, which is also, Drive-Thru RPG and RPG Now and a number of other sites all run off the same company. And they are, they're not fully SJW, but they are easily bullied by SJWs. I've seen product taken down from those sites. And on the other end with ebooks, there's Amazon, which I'm worried is going to slide into this cabal of Facebook, Twitter, and Google, who have now become full-on SJW enforcement agencies, YouTube being a subsidiary of Google. I'm worried. Very, very worried. So, I don't know. Now's a good time to strike and then build a relationship with your audience, build your own independent marketplace that people can come to buy your stuff. Even if they don't right now, in the future, if Amazon starts to crack down on wrong thinkers, it would be good to have, as an author, as a game designer, a personal relationship with your audience so that you have someplace to go if Amazon decides to screw you over. I'm not, and that is not a prediction. I'm not predicting that to happen in the next 2 to 3 years, but it worries me.
Yeah, I definitely have the same worries.
All right, that's the end of my rant. We are out of time. We're over time, just a little bit though. Do you have any last words, Mr. Delarose?
Yeah, Tuesday, buy my book, The Stars Entwined. This is what I'm here for. I'm going to be hitting the pavement hard next week, so I apologize that my social media is going to be turning from fun memeing and stuff to shilling full time, but I don't apologize that much because I got to make a living. So pick it up on Tuesday. Thanks.
And his link to buy that is in the description of the video. Any last words, Dornall?
Oh, thanks for coming on, John. Thanks for everybody in the chat hanging out, talking about RPGs and stuff. It's been a good show.
This is Geek Gab. We're here about once a week, about this time. Next week, we have Jason on Spock scheduled to come on the show, the other author of Galaxy's Edge. And so we're looking forward to that. And I don't know if there's another movie coming out, but we may have to tack another movie review on the front of that. Is there another movie coming out?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, we'll have to look.
Did you guys see Death Wish, though?
Yeah, we reviewed it last week.
Oh, you did? Oh, I got to go listen to that. Okay, I'll do that right after this.
In fact, that's the first part of the show. The first 20, 30 minutes of the show is the Death Wish review. But you'll want to stick around for A Wrinkle in Time because that was a hoot. That was really funny. I enjoyed it. So this is Geek Gab. We're here at youtube.com/GeekGab about once a week. Please subscribe and click on the little bell icon to double secret subscribe. Like the video if you liked the video. And if you don't like YouTube and you want to listen to us on some other platform, we will be available. We are available on any Android device that can download the Google Play Store. We are available on the web at soundcloud.com, and you can also download those SoundCloud episodes as MP3s and just play them to your heart's content. We are also available on the iTunes Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab, and we will show up in all those places and YouTube as well. Thanks for everybody coming and listening and participating in the chat. One of the best things about this show is all the great, intelligent, and educated people. Absolutely no sarcasm, folks. I'm telling you the truth. We have great, intelligent, and educated people who come and hang out in our chat. You should come listen to the show live. The chat is now persistent. You can watch it. If you come to YouTube, you can watch the chat and see the discussion that goes on, and you will know that I am not lying about that. So, thanks for everybody coming and participating in the chat. We are signing off for today, but don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.